by being here now as you are, open and aware, without mediation, you will gain an insight, a deep insight into how things are, into what this is. You find a deeper knowledge, the knowledge of reality, not mind knowledge. Knowledge has to come from observation. How else would you acquire knowledge? Yeah, you can acquire knowledge through learning, through taking on a belief system, but that's not the kind of knowledge we're talking about. This real knowledge has to originate from sensory experiences. Those sensory experiences are our guide, are the doorway to this deeper intelligence, feeling into this knowing, and it is inexplicable and it permeates everything. There's just different ways the intelligence expresses. So you go into the unknown and you only find the undeniable, the irrefutable, and that's this.
Yeah, there's a real familiarity and homeliness in unknowing. You just fall back into that, and then the kind of true knowing starts to reveal itself. It was always there, the true knowing, but it was kind of seemingly covered over by the conceptual knowings. You're like a ray of sunlight or something, but then you know everything about the sun because you are the ray of sunlight. Like reality is fractaled as you. This is the advantage we have. We don't need to go to external sources to find out stuff. It's all actually here. And that's not just a philosophical statement. That's it's all here. And this is kind of what we try and lead people towards, is the feeling into it. And it's not that it will just suddenly come up with a voice that will give you answers to questions. It's that you kind of understand it on another level that doesn't use words, that doesn't use concepts, it doesn't use the intellect. It uses a deeper level of intelligence. The amazing thing is that's already there. It just requires a bit of sensitivity, and you feel into it and you're like, I understand. You're feeling the answer and you're going straight there.
You're listening to the Nonduality podcast. This is Nick Higham from nisargayoga.com, and here with me is Paul Dobson. This is Nisargadatta. He says, you want to know yourself. For this, keep steadily in the focus of consciousness, the only clue you have, your certainty of being. Be with it, play with it, ponder over it, delve deeply into it, till the shell of ignorance breaks open and you emerge into the realm of reality. You're already directly engaged with reality because you are experiencing. You are awake, you are switched on, you can't be switched off, and you happen to be aware of things. Those things are under the microscope. Pick any of those things and zoom right into it, go right into it, into the sensory, non-interpretive experience of that. That is an insight into this deeper realm of intelligence beyond any kind of idea about what that thing is. We're not saying that ideas are wrong. Ideas are actually part of the intelligence, or an expression of the intelligence. The mind is intelligent as much as this deeper intelligence we're talking about. It's an expression of it. There's nothing that isn't this intelligence. There's no part of your experience that isn't alive. Through being aware, you are exploring yourself. You don't find anything that isn't you. You only find yourself. If you're sitting on a chair right now and you feel the chair beneath the body, you're actually feeling yourself. You're not feeling the chair. By that, I mean, what you actually know of the chair is sensation. That's what you know. And what's sensation? How close is sensation to you? How unknown is that sensation? No, it's so known. It's so close. It's closer than close.
Yeah.
And so there's more to what you are. There's more to reality than the conceptualizing mind. Really, it can't veil anything because there is only that intelligence. There's not the veil and something beyond the veil. There's no beyond. There's only here. When we talk about going beyond thoughts, going beyond beliefs, going beyond ideas, we're saying leave them as they are, So you can feel on a sensory level in a direct way immediately. Like Nisargadatta says, be with it. Be with your certainty of being, because that's actually all you know of anything. Whatever is underneath your microscope of attention, of awareness, is being. Because if you feel anything, any form now, you only find beingness there beyond the label applied to it. Be with that beingness. Be playful with it. Ponder over it. Delve deeply into it. And you emerge into the realm of reality. The realm of reality is that deeper level of intelligence. You're holding it rather than cast it aside, rather than try to bypass it or to even problem solve it, because that is the gateway to the primal intelligence. This primal meaningfulness beyond conceptual meaning. This is deeper meaning. And it is inexplicable, but it is what you are. So it is the most meaningful isness there is. And it permeates everything.
Yeah. When you feel into them in the way that you've just been saying, in the way that we've been talking about, you can actually start to get a sense of the gold that is there. If you can, turn into it, like turn directly, face it, and bring it close, so close that you are, because it is you are already close with it, but to kind of put some words to it, bring it close as you can possibly bring it so intimate that you can't separate yourself from it and feel into it. Be totally willing to be open to it. Don't shut down, don't constrict, don't tighten. What is it actually made of? What is it really made of when you feel into it? Like, not to answer the question, but really, what is it made of? How is it appearing? What is it? And if you can't answer that question with the mind, with words, then what is the answer? And if you feel into it in this way, you may start to see the gold that's actually there. Because ultimately what's there, it's just energy. It's the purity and innocence of energy. It's like the ray of the sun that has then been refracted through loads of pieces of glass, and it starts to look dark maybe, and even like a dirty color. Suddenly it doesn't start to look like the ray of the sun anymore. But this is just following the ray back, and you see, oh, it never left its inherent quality, which is purity. Its pure radiance of the sun is still there no matter what it's been refracted through. And it's appeared as shame. And it's never lost its purity. It's always remained pure. It just kind of looks a bit like impure. But when you look more closely, you go, oh, this is the sun. This is the radiance. This is still what it always was. It never changed. And that's why it just requires sensitivity and a willingness to feel into it, because you can't possibly see that if you're unwilling to get close to it kind of view. But when you really zoom in the ways you were saying with like a microscope, you find that the sun's light never changed. It's still, you go, oh, wait, this is made of pure, radiant, beautiful, golden photons from the sun. And it never changed. There is a kind of skill to be more sensitively with it, or not, or a skill maybe not to go straight to your interpretations, perhaps. Whatever way you want to put it, it's a sensitivity. It's the same thing. It feels like a sensitivity, but that's not, obviously still not an accurate word. When you're with it like that, you can start to see it because it can't actually be other than its source. And what is its source? The answer can only be said in this primal intelligence of whatever it is we're calling beyond mind.
Exactly. And what's worth saying as well is that there's no right way of experiencing life, experiencing yourself.
No.
There are just different ways of experiencing yourself, exploring yourself. You're always experiencing and exploring yourself. You're manifesting yourself. You are that one self, the whole, the totality, giving birth to yourself through this outpouring of expression, always. And no expression is out of place, is wrong. That is the point. That's what we always come back to. Nothing is out of place. Everything has a place. If you're aware of it, it already has a place within your awareness. And you are awareness. Everything has a place within you. There's nothing that hasn't been allowed in. Again, it has been allowed in because it's here. So it's very, very, very simple, but it's a very powerful recognition. You don't have to open the door of awareness to what is already here, because what is here, is present. Now the question is not why is it here, or should it be here or not, but what is it that is here? So it's here. So the hard work is done. It's here. And also you're holding it in awareness. That in itself, that recognition is huge.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to allow. What would you do to allow? How would you allow? Go ahead and try to allow what's here. And you'll find that you're already allowing what's here, simply because it's here. Now, going back to what I was about to say, the question is now, what is it that is here? Explore what it is, directly, sensitively. Delve into the intelligence of it, into the primal isness of what's here. Anything can be your starting point. Here's something from Neil Donald Walsh. He says, what God chooses to do is to know itself in its own experience. This is God's holy purpose, to know itself wholly. God can know itself conceptually easily enough. God merely has to think about itself. Yet for God to experience itself, God has to encounter something that God is not. Only through such an encounter can God experience what God is. God reasoned that since nothing other than God existed, God would have to create something that appeared to be other than God out of itself. God did this by dividing itself into smaller parts, and each of those parts would be something other than the totality of God. In this way, any individual part could know the totality, and the totality could know each individual part. And God could experience who and what God is. And so, the realm of the relative was created, and along with it, relative experience. Now, all parts of God can experience themselves as who and what they are in relationship to who and what everything else is, and thus know both the individuality and the totality of God, the magnificence and the wonder and the glory of the all, and of all that comprises the all in its various parts. If you're not comfortable with the word God, change it. Pick whatever word works for you. Reality is exploring itself through creating that which does not seem like reality. Reality creates the unreal stuff, apparently, but the unreal stuff is made of the real. And so it's like a reconciliation. It's like a re-knowing, as we always say, a remembrance of what truly is.
Yeah. This is the weird thing when you look at it. Say weird, but it's totally normal to whatever awareness is, whatever experience is. If I stay just so close to my experience, just absolutely close, as close as I can, just to my experience, my actual experience, without going to interpretations, without going to anything I might have learned along the way, or what I feel might be going on, just my experience. There's no separate parts to this. There's just one continuum of experience. This isn't particularly mystical, what we're talking about with this exploration. Reality is like amazing and mystical, and sure, but like you can't find separate parts. Everything is yourself. And I love what Peter Brown said. I've brought it up several times before, that your true body is experience. But it's such a good way of putting it, because your true body is experience. It's not that you're experiencing something from in here that's out there. That's an idea, actually. That's an assumption through what you've learned, through ideas you picked up along the way. But if you stay with experience, drop all of that stuff. It just is one flow of experience. And the experience is you, and you can even drop you, because it's just experience, whatever that is. And when you feel into that and just go directly with it, you can't find any separation here.
No.
Yet your mind is dying to jump in. It's just dying to jump in and tell you what everything is. It's like banging at the door outside going, wait, no, it's separate things. Don't be stupid. Don't listen to this guy. It's separate things. He's talking nonsense. This isn't science. This is nonsense. But when you're 100% with this experience here, this actuality here, as it is, no interpretations, that's all you can find. There's not actually separate parts to this. There's not separate parts which would have the mind would have you believe there are. Being with your experience in this way is the healing.
Exactly.
Because when you're seeing shame, difficult experiences of life, things like shame, guilt, fear, as it truly is, beyond the labels, beyond the stories of shame, if you can begin to feel into that and open to it, reality takes the momentum and does the work for you in a way when you feel into it in that way. Shame is starting to recognize what it is.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. It's not that you're changing it. It's starting to recognize what it truly is. It's not being put in darkness anymore. Shame is no longer being shame. It's kind of reclaimed. When difficulties like that arise that seem to be to do with life experiences and life situations, the more I feel into the direct energy and the more I open to it and the more I don't shut it away and the more I just kind of feel into it, just be totally willing to let it take me, to be just totally open to it. Don't shut the door on it. The more it really reveals its true nature, it reveals what it truly is. And it's actually not separate from the exploration into non-duality, what life is. You're just wanting to see what life is ultimately. What is this? Like, what is it that's here? And sometimes these very dense, difficult experiences appear. And it was tempting to go, I'm going to get rid of that through some kind of non-dual thing. I'm going to detach from it in some awareness state. And the thing isn't actually there. I'm just going to pretend it's not there.
Yeah.
And I've tried that. For me, it doesn't work. Maybe people have found it works, but it doesn't work for me. What I find really works is bringing it so intimately close and embracing it and opening it to it. Psychically, what are you saying? What are you doing here? What is this? And the closer it comes, the more I can't distinguish it from something like bliss.
True.
I'm not saying it is bliss, but I'm saying you can't distinguish. It becomes the fuzzy. It becomes less distinct. And the more and more I feel it closely, it's just exactly the same as what we were saying earlier with a microscope. And you zoom in and you zoom in. And the more you zoom in, it becomes less of an object. And things become less distinct, more fuzzy. So we're doing the same here, like with experience, we're fully zooming in. So things are not as distinct. So you fully zoom into shame and it's not distinct as shame anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to talk about it. There's no one way of initiating this recognition. Your identity expands. Said differently, it's as if your limiting beliefs dissolve. Because your limiting beliefs create a sense of contraction, a smallness, and they are beliefs. I mean, it's clear that beliefs are made up. If you engage directly with anything, that thing, that form, that expression does not come with a ready-made belief attached to it. Again, use the example of this chair. If you're sitting on a chair, but it doesn't matter really what it is, if you just feel, see, hear, and you won't find the label, you won't find a belief. That is secondary. That comes later, as it were. Not that there is time. That's a belief too. But what is primary beyond the conceptual? It's this deeper intelligence, rediscovering and noticing this consciously, tuning into this intelligence is the essence of spirituality, and it's the essence of living. Because you're already doing it. You may not notice, and actually spiritual practice is about noticing in different ways. Meditation, inquiry, yoga, prayer. It's about noticing consciously, rediscovering what's already here, what you're already engaged with, because what you're engaged with is yourself. Like you just said, and it's a brilliant pointer of Peter's. Your field of experiencing is your body. It's your home.
Yeah.
And it's infinite. I can say that with confidence that it's infinite because I don't find an end to my experiencing. And I don't find any limitations, any divides. The walls are not the end of my experiencing. the ceiling is not the extent of this experiencing and this awareness. It is as if expanding into this oceanic reality where once you were a limited wave dissolving into what you always are, which makes no sense. When you speak about it, it makes no sense because you are the ocean always, but you recognize it. You recognize it through dropping the beliefs, dropping the sense of limitation. So we're talking about the possibility of not investing your attention in ideas, in beliefs. Again, we're not making them wrong. Like I said right at the beginning, and I know that you agree, that's a mode of intelligence, but you're already acquainted with that. So get acquainted with this other, well, notice that you already are acquainted, I should say. You're already engaged, and go into what this is. We're not looking for a conclusion with this. As the physicist Francis Everett said, always be suspicious of the news you want to hear. Don't go after something. Don't try to find a conclusion. The mind does have a propensity to want to conclude, to want to wrap things up, to want to define and interpret what is here. If that happens, and it will, then notice that. And actually that can be a point of inquiry. Inquire into that tendency, inquire into the beliefs. So even the beliefs has a texture, doesn't it? It has a sense, it has a felt sense to it. And that's what we're talking about. However that belief shows up, even that can provide this richness. As you notice what's coming up, don't try to notice, just notice that you're noticing, because that's already happening. And notice that the nature of this experiencing is that it is this unlimited capacity. Even to call it a capacity isn't quite right, because it's beyond any measurement. And this experiencing, your body is what you refer to when you say I. To say I am aware is to say awareness is aware. So your ordinary existing self is this continual process of sensing, and all the stuff that arises and dissolves naturally are what you call experiences. And notice that whatever you experience is literally made of sensation. Can you find anything that isn't sensation? You find a bundle of sensations, just this rich array of texture. So get interested in that other realm, that other dimension. By simply noticing what's actually here, we find not separate forms, like you said, nothing separate, but this formless sensing, for lack of a better way of talking about it. So it's one sense to which we attach different labels: seeing, smelling, tasting, and so on. Well, actually, seeing is the same as smelling, and smelling is the same as hearing. Those words are just arbitrary labels. There's one sense. So we only notice sensing. I notice sensing. Well, I'm saying I, or experiencing there, because I is experiencing, noticing is experiencing, and sensing is experiencing. That's non-duality right there. Why chop it up? I mean, we do, and that's okay. This is language. It's just art, isn't it? It's just creativity. It's just a phase we're going through, it seems. A mode of exploration. But there's another way, and that's what we're pointing to.
Yeah. Just go back to something you said. Beliefs. This is the interesting thing. Beliefs don't need to go anywhere. That's when this gets really interesting. When you feel into what beliefs are, the thoughts that come up, they've got their own sort of texture, and they're just as much a part of experience as everything else, which makes them infinite, and therefore they can't be separated from this amazing divine flow of infinity. So they don't need to really go anywhere. But the difference is when you really truly have seen that the beliefs can't possibly be telling the truth. No belief, no matter how profound, can be telling the truth, because it just can't. It can't be fitted into these limited symbols called words. Just impossible. Can't fit reality into it, and therefore all beliefs are rendered false. But it's like sitting on the sofa, really believing that you're the video game character that you're playing on the television. Between that and sitting on the sofa knowing that you're just playing a video game, It's like, that's the difference. It's like the beliefs can still be there. You can enjoy like the beliefs to play with as part of the character, but that's a very, very different way of perceiving life and reality. And this is not to diminish the character in any way. Like calling it the character sounds like sort of a diminishment of this amazing human life I seem to find myself in. But if I believe that I'm just a human being in a world, then I'm doing myself an injustice, really. I'm not doing myself any favors, because I'm just believing that's the only truth, and everything becomes terrifying, suffering becomes heightened. There's a very vulnerable state. Like you said earlier, that Neil Donald Walsh said, God can only know itself through what appears to be other than God. And suffering, human suffering, I would say, is at the far reaches of what can be quote unquote other than God. Seem to be, not actually, but seem to be. That's really, you've entered the house of mirrors, and the mirrors are state of the art, like trickery. Like they've really gone to town on this house of mirrors. This is like designed by like some kind of super hyper intelligent Disney World creator. Also, you've got this other option, and if you're listening to this, that means you're even just starting to question things. It doesn't matter what kind of quote unquote level you're entering this at. It means the fact that you're listening to podcasts like this, you're starting to go, wait a minute, is there another way of perceiving life?
Yeah, exactly. We are here to remind you that you are home, and whatever it is you are experiencing, whatever it is you're going through, is unfolding within home and is made of home. So therefore nothing is foreign, nothing is unreal. The labels attached to what's here within home are not real. They're imaginary, conceptual, made up ideas. But the essence of what is here is home. Nothing is foreign in that sense. Everything is made of that home ground. The only ground there is this existing ground of presence. What is it that is present? So there's a glass here. Nothing wrong with naming it a glass. It just isn't its entirety. That word can never sum it up, cannot conclude what it is. Like, it's okay that it appears as a glass and it's used as a glass. There's a utility there. We're not saying labeling is wrong again, and hopefully we've hit that home enough today. We're not saying any of it is wrong. We're just saying there's another way. Every mode of perception is equal because it's all taken place within home, all equally held with the same appreciation and regard within home, within reality, within God, within you. There's just different ways of exploring yourself with what is given, what is already given, what's already accessible, what is already here. Well, it's this, and you are giving it to yourself. So in that sense, you are directly engaged. This is self-intimacy. You're totally in love with yourself, in awe with yourself. And then sometimes you appear to overlook yourself and fixate on certain expressions of yourself. But really, you can't overlook yourself. Those expressions of yourself, albeit limiting and contracted, they are only made of that home that you are. They are only made of experiencing, because every experience is made of experiencing. Notice this direct engagement. Notice what's already given and work with that. It just might be that you just can't get away from thought. Well, thought is what is given, so explore thought. Use what you have, because that's what's showing up. That's your entry point. So you notice conception, okay? So there's this process of conceptualizing, narrating. So what is that? Well, the mind is also nothing but a series of sensations. Thought may as well be imagery, hearing, seeing, and that's just more sensing. It's sensing. It's just cognizing consciousness. It's all it is. It's just the same. There's nothing wrong with it. It's actually pretty awesome. It's a miracle that the one self is manifesting thoughts now. That's absolutely astonishing. But it's not all that's here. All we really have are appearances. We just have these appearances, kind of raw data, if you like. So when you inquire this way, you begin to separate knowledge from belief, and you find this deeper knowledge, this deeper intelligence, true knowledge. The Course in Miracles says the search for truth is but the honest searching out of everything that interferes with truth. So separating knowledge from belief. So what's interfering with truth? Well, it's just what you believe truth to be. Now, all you have to do is peel back those beliefs and there's no interference. Really, there's no interference anyway, because the labels are made of the truth. It's like attaching an ice label to water or a water label to ice. The label is made of the water, is made of ice. Thoughts are attached to this and seem to obscure this, but those thoughts are made of this, made of that intelligence as well. At the same time, it might be helpful to, as the Course says, in this honest searching out of everything, have that discernment. What is real, what is imagined, what is eternal, what is transient, as is said in Advaita Vedanta. The more we examine the process of perception, this aliveness of consciousness, the more uncertainty there is. But that doesn't mean that you're far away from home. It's uncertain as in you can't pin it down, but it's so familiar because it's all there is. It's all you are.
Yeah, there's a real familiarity and homeliness in unknowing. You just fall back into that, and then the kind of true knowing starts to reveal itself. As we've said before, that's like a true knowing. It makes itself known, you could say. It was always there, the true knowing, but it was kind of seemingly covered over by the conceptual knowings. Because the mind is so short. It's so short. I don't want this to in any way make the mind appear like an enemy, because like you said several times, it's like this miraculous expression of reality, and it's great. There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But as far as like the exploration and coming to having a look at what's true, it's the prism that skews the light into many colors. You know, it's like we're looking at the light here. We're looking at the light that's been shown through the prism. The colors are still the light. We look at the colors that are inherently the light. So there's nothing wrong with the mind, but as far as this investigation is concerned, it's more efficient, more effective to go to the direct expression of what's here. Like you say, you peel back the layers of the conceptual. There is no use in having some tug of war with the mind, in telling the mind it's wrong, because that actually fuels more of the same stuff. And that's actually only ever done really by the mind, this kind of tug of war. If you kind of sort of have an open acceptance of the mind for what it is, it's almost like that's more the attitude. Go, oh, okay, yeah, you're fantastic. You do your thing. I'm just going to change gears on this. You keep doing your thing, and I love you. And I know you've got lots of ideas, and that's great. And I love your enthusiasm. But can I just maybe just have a more direct look at this? And the mind will just keep churning out stuff the whole time. There are maybe those who've had one seeing, then it's a done deal, and like somehow like their whole life they just can't possibly fall out of that mode of knowing, of seeing, and can't possibly go via the interpretations. But with my experience, it's like that Dzogchen saying small seeings many times, and you just keep coming back to this. It's like the quote from the Sargadatta, suffering is a call for inquiry. Just use it as an alarm bell. Like, I'm suffering. That must mean I'm believing something. Like, what is it that I'm believing that's making me suffer so much? Feel into it. Feel into the whole thing. You don't have to answer that question. It's an invitation. It's an opportunity just to feel into it. There's no way to pin it down. So if you can let go of the idea you're ever going to answer these questions, that's quite a good start, because although in reality there are no obscurations, it does create this seeming distortion and obscuration of what reality is. And the more I can relax into the unknowing, the more I can let go of having any answers whatsoever, and the more I just feel directly into the qualities of what it is to be here, what it is just to exist, what it is to be alive, not as those concepts, but as the felt sense of just the unquestionable aliveness that's here, of experience that's here. The more I feel into that, and just go more into the unknowing and just feel and just feel and feel, because conclusions are a mode of finity, and this is infinity. Like you said earlier, you're remembering something.
Yeah.
You're remembering something that you already know. It's like you're remembering something that you already know, but that can't be put into words. It's like, oh, some part of you goes, oh, I remember. But the remembering is seen to be on a totally different frequency of engagement is like just a different level of intelligence. It's like you've been staring at it this whole time. You're staring reality in the face as reality.
And it feels like a different dimension, but it's the only dimension.
Yeah.
It feels like a deeper intelligence, but it's the only intelligence. There's not a deeper and a superficial intelligence. There's just different ways the intelligence expresses. So you go into the unknown and you only find the undeniable, the irrefutable, and that's this. That one sense seems to be split into different senses, and from the different senses that get grouped together, and the different objects that those senses, those bundles and sensations create, and then you have a whole world of other things and other people, and then you've got duality, and you've got samsara, and you've got suffering, and you've got the forgetfulness, and you've got the search, and maybe that's life's intention. Not that it's inflicting pain on itself and suffering on itself for some kind of sick experiment or self-harm. No, there's something going on here that's way beyond any ideas, any idea, any notion that we can fathom. This is knowable but undeniable at the same time. Like the isness of this is undeniable, but the characterization of this is just nonsense. So this intelligence is built into everything, and that's the advantage. This miraculous substance, and it's not a substance really, it's not a material substance, can present as anything. The rainbow can shine, can burst forth, can radiate in any kind of colour, in any kind of way. So it can present as these sights and these sounds and these smells and these tastes and these thoughts as well. So it presents then as worlds, as entities, as objects and different situations and meaning. And that's okay. It doesn't feel okay when you kind of fixate on any of that to the exclusion of the entirety. It doesn't feel okay, of course, especially when you identify with it and feel small. It's just shift your attention and see the bigger picture. Reality, you are profoundly creative. There's no way that you're getting this wrong. This is exactly how it is. This is exactly how you are presenting yourself right now. The presentation is not wrong. This is the presentation. So what's the essence of that presentation? It's just to find that out, not to stop presenting, not to stop the exquisite creative power, but to discern the essence of it.